dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. It helps us grow, reach more amazing learners like you, and keep bringing you fresh and fun content every week. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and let's keep this journey going strong. Hello there, wonderful listeners and dedicated idiom detectives. A huge warm welcome back to another episode of Idiom Insights. I'm Emma, and it's genuinely exciting to be back with you, ready to explore 4 more fascinating phrases that add so much color and meaning to the English language. Thanks for making us a part of your learning routine.
And a very enthusiastic hello from me too. It's Jack, your co-host. Equally excited to dive into today's selection of idioms. Welcome back to Idiom Insights. You know, Emma, today's phrases feel particularly evocative. They touch upon self-reliance under pressure, suspicion, unspoken communication, and steadfastness. It really underscores how idioms can capture complex psychological states and social dynamics in just a few well-chosen words.
That's so true, Jack. They're like concentrated nuggets of observation about human behavior and predicaments. Understanding idioms like the ones today, about facing challenges alone, sensing deceit, conveying meaning without words, and maintaining resolve, allows learners to really grasp the underlying messages in conversations. It's about picking up on the implied pressure, the hint of suspicion, the power of silence, or the strength of conviction that these phrases convey so efficiently. It adds a crucial layer to comprehension.
Absolutely. That layer of implication is where so much richness lies. So let's get ready to uncover the richness in today's idioms. On this carefully crafted episode of Idiom Insights, we are going to meticulously dissect these 4 powerful expressions. First, facing a challenge alone, sink or swim, a stark choice with significant consequences. Next, sensing something suspicious, smell a rat. Why a rat? And what does this suspicion entail? Then conveying meaning silently, speak volumes. And when actions or lack of action say more than words ever could. And finally, maintaining your position. Stick to your guns. A phrase suggesting resolve and determination.
A truly potent and interesting mix today, Jack, covering quite fundamental aspects of dealing with challenges, suspicion, communication, and conviction. Before we jump into the deep end with sink or swim, we'd love to share that very quick, friendly reminder from your Idiom Insights team. If you're finding these detailed explorations helpful and want to ensure you receive all our future episodes brimming with linguistic insights, please do take just a second to hit that subscribe or follow button on your podcast app. It's the easiest way to stay connected.
Please do. It means you won't miss a beat or an idiom. And, as always, we're incredibly grateful for any likes or positive ratings you feel inclined to leave. They really help other passionate English learners discover idiom insights and join our fantastic global learning community. Your support truly fuels our work. Okay, friendly prompts completed. Emma, let's talk about that rather dramatic choice. Sink or swim? What kind of situation forces this?
It describes a situation, Jack, where someone is put into a challenging position without adequate help, support, or preparation, and they are forced to either fail completely, sink, or manage to succeed through their own efforts and abilities, swim. The phrase emphasizes the lack of external support and the high stakes involved. Success depends entirely on the individual's own capability and resourcefulness. It implies a tough, perhaps even harsh, learning environment or test where failure is a distinct possibility and direct assistance is withheld.
Forced self-reliance in a high-stakes situation that captures the pressure, doesn't it? It's often used when describing starting a new, challenging job where the training is minimal and the person is just expected to figure things out for themselves immediately. The company might have a sink or swim attitude towards new recruits. They either cope and succeed quickly or they fail and leave. It can also apply to life situations, perhaps someone moving to a new country alone with little support. They have to learn the language, find work, build a life entirely on their own. It's a real test of their resilience.
Absolutely, Jack. That test aspect is crucial. It's often seen as a way to quickly determine someone's competence or resilience, although it can be argued whether it's always a fair or effective method. The lack of a safety net is implied. Unlike situations where mistakes are allowed or guidance is readily available, a sink or swim scenario suggests that failure has significant negative consequences. and help isn't readily forthcoming. It forces the individual to rely entirely on their own wits and determination to survive and hopefully thrive in the challenging circumstances presented to them.
That reliance on one's own wits really underscores the pressure. It's about being thrown in at the deep end and having to figure out how to stay afloat entirely by yourself. Let's hear how Mia and Mark encounter this concept. Who is facing this kind of challenge?
Mark, I spoke to Sophie, your niece, earlier about how she's finding her internship at that high-pressure advertising agency downtown.
Oh, Sophie's internship? Yes, I know she was excited, but also quite nervous about starting there. It's known for being a very demanding environment, isn't it? How is she actually coping after the first couple of weeks?
Well, coping is the word. She said it's been incredibly intense. Apparently, they don't really do much formal training for interns. On her second day, they basically gave her a live client brief, a list of contacts, and told her to develop a social media campaign proposal by the end of the week.
Seriously? A live client brief on day 2 with minimal guidance? That sounds incredibly stressful for an intern. What support did they offer her?
Very little, according to Sophie. She said when she asked her supervisor for more direction, he just said, "Figure it out. That's how you learn best here." It sounds like the company has a real sink or swim mentality. They just throw people into challenging tasks and expect them to either manage successfully on their own or fail quickly.
Wow, that's tough. Talk about being thrown in at the deep end. That sink or swim approach might work for some very confident individuals, but it sounds incredibly daunting and potentially damaging for others. How is Sophie actually managing? Is she sinking or swimming?
Surprisingly, she seems to be swimming. She said it's terrifying, but also weirdly exhilarating. She's working incredibly hard, learning loads very quickly out of sheer necessity, and her initial proposal actually got positive feedback, but she definitely feels the pressure of that sink or swim environment.
That dialogue perfectly captures the essence of the idiom. Sophie was given a challenging task with minimal support, forcing her to rely entirely on her own abilities.
Exactly. Mia explicitly identifies the company's approach as having a sink or swim mentality, highlighting the lack of support and the high stakes involved for Sophie. Mark echoes this understanding. It clearly illustrates the meaning of being forced into self-reliance in a challenging situation. Listeners, do you think a sink or swim approach is ever a good way to learn?
Now, from facing challenges alone, let's move to sensing hidden trouble. Our second idiom involves the sense of smell and a rather unpopular rodent. Smell a rat. Jack, what does this phrase signal? What kind of rat are we talking about?
Well, Emma, rats are often associated with disease, decay, and unpleasant hidden places. So, idiomatically, if you smell a rat, it means you feel suspicious. You suspect that something is wrong, dishonest, deceitful, or corrupt in a particular situation, even if you don't have concrete proof yet. Your intuition or the circumstances make you feel uneasy and suspect that there's something hidden and unpleasant going on behind the scenes, like smelling a hidden, unseen rat. It implies a feeling of mistrust or suspicion about someone's motives or the truthfulness of a situation.
That feeling of suspicion based on intuition or suggestive circumstances is key. It's not about certainty. It's about a dawning sense that things aren't quite right, that something dishonest or problematic is being concealed. You might smell a rat if a business deal seems too good to be true, with promises that sound unrealistic. Or if someone's explanation for their actions keeps changing or contains contradictions. You might start to smell a rat, suspecting they aren't telling the whole truth. It's that gut feeling that prompts you to look closer and question what you're being told or shown.
Absolutely. It often triggers investigation or caution. You don't necessarily know what is wrong yet, but the feeling is strong enough to make you wary. Think about a situation where a colleague who normally struggles suddenly presents a perfect, complex report that seems far beyond their usual capabilities, and they're evasive when asked about how they did it. You might smell a rat and wonder if they received unauthorized help or even plagiarized parts of it. The circumstances just don't add up, triggering your suspicion. It's that feeling of, something fishy is going on here.
Exactly. Something fishy is another great related expression. Let's hear Mia and Mark's conversation. What situation is making them feel suspicious?
Mark, did you see that email circular from Honest John's Quality Cars, the used car dealership on the edge of town? They're advertising a massive closing down sale. Everything must go. Apparently, they're offering unbelievable discounts, like 50% off nearly new cars.
Honest John's closing down? That's surprising. They always seem busy whenever I drive past. And 50% off nearly new cars? That sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? Are you sure that's what the email said?
Yes, clear as day. Closing down forever sale. Unbeatable bargains. 50% off selected nearly new models. It sounds like an amazing opportunity to grab a bargain if we were looking for a newer car.
Maybe. But you know, Mia, I smell a rat. Why would a supposedly successful dealership suddenly close down and offer such impossibly huge discounts? It doesn't make sense financially. Real closing down sales usually offer maybe 10 to 20% off, not 50% off valuable stock like nearly new cars.
You think it's suspicious? What could be the reason?
I don't know for sure, but maybe it's not a genuine closing down sale at all. Perhaps it's just a dishonest marketing tactic to lure people in, and the selected cars with 50% off are actually very old models or have hidden problems, or maybe the company is in serious financial trouble and they're desperately trying to liquidate assets quickly, possibly selling cars they don't fully own yet. Either way, those kinds of unbelievable deals often hide something dodgy. I definitely smell a rat. I wouldn't go near there without extreme caution.
That conversation really highlights how unbelievable circumstances can trigger suspicion. The too good to be true nature of the car sale immediately makes Mark wary.
Exactly. He uses "smell a rat" twice to express his strong suspicion that something dishonest or problematic is behind this seemingly amazing offer. He doesn't have proof, but the situation itself feels wrong and triggers his intuition that deceit might be involved. It perfectly illustrates the idiom's meaning. Listeners of Idiom Insights, what kind of situations tend to make you smell a rat?
Now let's move from suspicious situations to communication that happens without words. Our third idiom today is speak volumes. Emma, this suggests loud communication, but not necessarily through voice, right?
Precisely, Jack. It's about loud communication, but conveyed implicitly rather than explicitly. When something, like an action, a lack of action, a facial expression, a choice, or even silence, speaks volumes, it means it reveals a great deal about someone's thoughts, feelings, character, or the true nature of a situation, even though nothing or very little is said verbally. The meaning is conveyed powerfully through nonverbal cues or the implications of the behavior itself. It suggests that the unspoken message is very clear and significant.
So the meaning is clear and significant, conveyed non-verbally. That's fascinating. For example, if someone receives a gift they clearly dislike, their forced smile and minimal polite thank you might speak volumes about their true feelings, even if they verbally claim to like it. Their lack of genuine enthusiasm is more revealing than their words. Or think about someone who consistently chooses to spend their free time volunteering for a cause. Their actions speak volumes about their values and priorities, more powerfully than any statement they might make about caring.
Absolutely. Actions often do speak volumes. Silence can too. If you ask someone a direct question about their involvement in something controversial and they refuse to answer, remaining completely silent, that silence can speak volumes, implying guilt or concealment far more effectively than a weak denial might. It's about the powerful messages that are transmitted indirectly through behavior, choices, expressions, or lack thereof. The idiom highlights that words aren't the only, or sometimes even the most powerful form of communication.
That's a vital point, the power of the unspoken message. Let's hear from Mia and Mark. What situation or action is revealing a lot without words?
Mark, did you notice how quiet Mr. Henderson was at the residents' committee meeting last night, especially during the discussion about the accounts and the proposed budget increase?
Yes, I did notice. It was very unusual. Normally, Mr. Henderson has an opinion on everything, especially anything involving money. He's usually the first to question expenditures or demand detailed breakdowns. But last night, he barely said a word during that whole agenda item.
Exactly. He just sat there looking rather uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact when the treasurer was presenting the figures. He didn't ask a single question, even when Mrs. Gable raised a query about the unexpectedly high maintenance costs from last quarter, something Henderson normally would have jumped on.
And that higher maintenance cost was related to the emergency repairs needed for the fence that borders his property, wasn't it? The fence that mysteriously collapsed after those strong winds a few months back?
Yes, it was. You know, Mark, considering his usual vocal style on financial matters, his complete silence last night when those specific costs were being discussed, well, it seemed to speak volumes, didn't it?
It really did. His avoidance of the topic. His lack of questions about costs directly affecting him. It almost felt like an admission of embarrassment or perhaps even responsibility for the fence damage that led to those costs. His silence spoke volumes more than any denial would have. Very interesting.
That's a brilliant example of silence being incredibly communicative. Mr. Henderson's uncharacteristic lack of participation in the financial discussion, particularly regarding costs related to him, conveys a message without words.
Precisely. Mia uses speak volumes to describe how his silence strongly suggested underlying feelings, embarrassment, perhaps guilt, more effectively than any verbal statement could have. Mark agrees, emphasizing the power of the unspoken message in that context. It perfectly captures the idiom's meaning. Listeners, can you think of a situation where someone's actions, or lack thereof, spoke volumes?
And finally, let's turn to our fourth idiom, which is about holding firm to your beliefs. Stick to your guns. Jack, this phrase clearly evokes imagery of defense and resistance. What does it mean in everyday conversation?
It absolutely evokes that feeling of holding a defensive position, Emma. To stick to your guns means to maintain your position, opinion, or course of action firmly, refusing to change it or compromise, especially when facing opposition, criticism, pressure, or temptation to do otherwise. It implies steadfastness, determination, and resolve in upholding your beliefs or decisions, even when it's difficult. You're not backing down from your established stance.
Refusing to change your position despite pressure. That's the core. It suggests strength of conviction and resilience against opposition. You might admire someone who sticks to their guns on a matter of principle, even when everyone else disagrees, saying, "It took courage for her to stick to her guns like that." Or it can sometimes be used with a slightly negative connotation, implying stubbornness or inflexibility if the person is refusing to consider valid counter-arguments. He just wouldn't listen to reason. He was determined to stick to his guns no matter what. So, like some other idioms, the context colors whether it's seen as admirable resolve or frustrating obstinacy.
That distinction between admirable resolve and frustrating obstinacy is really important here. It depends entirely on whether you perceive the person's stance as principled and justified or simply stubborn and unreasonable. But the action itself is the same, maintaining a fixed position against pressure. You might advise a friend who is being pressured by a salesperson into buying something they don't want or need. Just stick to your guns and keep saying no. Here, it's advice to be firm and resist unwanted influence. It's about holding your ground.
Holding your ground is a great way to put it. Let's listen to Mia and Mark's final dialogue. Who is remaining firm in their decision despite potential disagreement?
Mark, I finally had that conversation with my boss about reducing my working hours slightly when I go back after my maternity leave.
Oh, that's a big conversation. How did it go? Was she supportive? We talked about how important it was for you to ask for that flexibility, even though it might not be standard practice in your department.
It was interesting. Initially, she seemed quite resistant. She brought up concerns about team workload, client coverage, setting precedents. She strongly encouraged me to reconsider and come back full-time, saying it would be better for my career progression.
Oh dear, so she tried to talk you out of it? That must have been difficult. What did you say? Did you back down?
Honestly, Mark, her arguments almost made me doubt myself for a moment. But then I remembered all the reasons why working slightly fewer hours, especially in that first year back, is genuinely the right decision for me and our family balance right now. So I politely listened to her concerns, acknowledged them, but then I calmly reiterated my request and explained clearly why it was important to me and how I believed I could still fulfill my core responsibilities effectively.
So you didn't give in to the pressure? You maintained your request for reduced hours?
Yes, I just stuck to my guns. I was firm but polite, explaining my position clearly and confidently without getting defensive. And eventually, after some more discussion about logistics, she actually agreed to trial it for 6 months.
She agreed? That's fantastic news, Mia. Well done. It sounds like sticking to your guns and calmly holding your position paid off. I'm really proud of you for not backing down under pressure.
That's a wonderful example of quiet determination. Mia faced resistance and pressure from her boss to change her mind about reducing her hours.
Exactly. But she calmly and firmly maintained her position based on her personal needs and conviction. She uses the phrase, "stuck to my guns," to describe her refusal to back down despite the pressure. And Mark congratulates her for this resolve, which ultimately led to a positive outcome. It perfectly illustrates the idiom's meaning of maintaining one's position firmly against opposition. Listeners of Idiom Insights, when is it most important to stick to your guns?
And with that powerful image of steadfastness, we conclude our exploration of 4 more highly useful English idioms. It's been great diving deep again. Let's quickly summarize the phrases we've discussed today.
Another thoroughly enjoyable session. Today on Idiom Insights, we covered sink or swim, to fail or succeed entirely through one's own efforts in a challenging situation without support. Smell a rat, to suspect that something is wrong, dishonest, or deceitful. Speak volumes, to convey a great deal of meaning implicitly without needing words. Stick to your guns, to maintain one's position or opinion firmly, refusing to change despite opposition.
Excellent recap. We sincerely hope that our detailed discussions today, focusing on the underlying concepts, nuances, and feelings associated with these idioms, have helped make them clearer and more memorable for you. Remember, understanding the why often makes remembering the what much easier.
Absolutely. Keep listening, keep noticing, keep thinking about the pictures these idioms paint. And if you found today's episode of Idiom Insights helpful and enriching on your language learning adventure, we would be immensely grateful if you could spare a moment to leave us a like, a rating, or perhaps even a short positive review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable.
And please make sure you are subscribed or following Idiom Insights. It's the easiest way to ensure you join us for every new episode as we continue to navigate the fascinating landscape of the English language together. We love sharing this journey with you.
We truly do. Thank you for your time, focus, and enthusiasm today. Until next time, keep learning with joy, practice with purpose, and enjoy the wonderful process. Goodbye for now.
Bye, everyone. Take care, stay well, and maybe try sticking to your guns on your language learning goals. Happy learning!